Hey everybody, we're back. We're still talking about Tableau's IronViz competition this year on the theme of different games. Today we're going to talk about getting the most out of that theatre competition, getting the best score you can. So you're going to be scored, on this case, in design, storytelling and analysis. And these can be quite challenging terms to get your head around to. But I want to try and break these down into much more relatable kind of format. So I've got this concept that if you were just trying to introduce a group of friends to a topic, say at a bar or whatever, how would you do it? You wouldn't be thinking about design or storytelling or analysis. You would just be trying and get them on board with your topic. So if you were trying to tell that story in a bar, you wouldn't be thinking about design. You just want something that's easy for those friends of yours to understand. When we talk about storytelling, you actually want them to follow along with what you're doing. They want you to be interested about what you're going to say next or what's going to happen next. And when we talk about analysis, it's all about sort of backing this up with some fact. This isn't just some rumour or some mad dream you had. This has been an actual thing that happened that keeps them sort of interested along the way. So the main one I'm going to talk about is storytelling. And so this is a really challenging one, I find. I get a lot of questions about this, what good storytelling looks like and what we should do. How can we be better storytellers? Why does storytelling matter? Is this idea that stories end up being much more memorable than just sort of anecdotal sort of facts. So at the end of this, you've got to think of what's that message for your audience at the end of the day. What are you going to make that judge go away and learn from this or take away as part of seeing your visualization? So if you're into data visualization, storytelling is a bit different. So in data visualization, it's all about speeding up the insights. So over here, we've taken this table of results and turned it into a bar chart. We had a major increase in the speed of which someone can go through and understand these results. But in storytelling, it's different. So in the world of films, the Titanic was a very successful film, made a lot of money, won a lot of Oscars, and it's a story about a boat, but it takes 3 hours. But what if I could tell you that you could watch this film in just a few seconds?
But this ship can't sing.
So in this case, you have seen the sped up version is not as effective. And what's going on here? So you found that it's quite comical, it's quite ridiculous, the faster version. Whereas for that 3 hours, they've really taken you through this different love story that ends in tragedy. So it's very heartfelt, emotional kind of tale that leaves a lot of people crying. And this brings me on to my next point. So the idea of storytelling is trying to share these different messages. Emotion can help you make that message stick and make that story much more memorable. I'll give you another example. So I have some dates up here. I'm sure if you're in the West, you will register some sort of emotion towards these dates, say the tragedies of 9/11 or the fear and confusion we had when the COVID outbreak started in March 2020. But hopefully something of joy when it comes to things like your birthday. So the reason these stick out is because of those different emotions we were feeling on these days that take us back in time, those memories that we have where we felt something. I'll give you another example. So in the IronViz final, I was trying to use emotion to try and make my story stick a bit better. This idea here where we were sharing about youth literacy rates, where we actually go away and explain what it means to be illiterate, what that means to you as a person, that you can't read or write, you're going to struggle in society, you're going to really have a hard time with things. Next, we shared a bit on the gender gap between men and women when it comes to literacy, and that women were much more likely to be illiterate than men. Now this is going to get people fired up because it's grand injustice again that everyone's going to have this predominant woman figure in their life, be it a mother, be it a sister, be it a wife, be it themselves, and the fact that they're more likely to be disadvantaged than men is going to make them feel something. I then later on got down to the individual person level, start talking about these individual personal stories. So I picked out different people from each of my nations and saw what the impact literacy had for them on their lives. Again, trying to get this down to a human level so it's very relatable for people to sort of register on an emotional level with this topic. So a bit more on storytelling. So we've kind of got an idea of what it's about, trying to add that emotion in, trying to share that message. This is all about trying to build out your story. So I kind of see that a story requires a few bits, a few data points to it to become actual storytelling. So for example, if you were to tell me like the top 10 products on sale today, I would say that's a data point. If you say, hey, these are the top 10 products that have really grown since the pandemic, I'm saying that's sort of cause and effect. If something happened, then this. But in this case, with storytelling, I kind of feel like where you weave 3 or more different data points together, almost taking this person, this judge, on a journey to a takeaway message at the end. So I did this in my visualization for the feeder. You saw those results. You then got to see the data that was relevant to you. So you, the user, are actually in this story. You can see the blue highlight here to show that this is what you responded and how many people agreed with you. I then also used something I'd never done before, but there was this little comic strip because it kind of felt right at the time, of these two characters, two friends talking through the data to try and branch you on to the next data point. So here we have your results on screen of how you did, how you answered the questions. We then sort of start talking how this related you to the different people submitting those answers. So trying to bridge that gap, guide you through that data. And then lastly at the end, I use this to reinforce that message. You use again these two characters to try and emphasize this point, the takeaway message at the end. These two numbers don't kind of emphasize it enough. So the idea that 0 people agreed with your answers, or 2/3 of people agreed with at least one of your answers. So this reinforced the message of saying, what does this really mean? That you can at least relate to another person through some of your answers, and that's the way we sort of make connections with different people despite our uniqueness. So that about wraps it up on storytelling. We've done a lot. So think about that message that you're trying to get to those judges. Think about the emotion you can bring into this to try and make that message stick for that judge. And also think about how you're going to structure your different data points to build out your story. In the next video, we'll be covering analysis and design.